Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Uh, Assalamu alaikum, Zaifa. Assalamu alaikum, Adam. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes so everybody can join us. Uh, Such a good day. First class after such a good day yesterday. I would like to thank my students once again. They've done amazingly well. Like I was not expecting this. Uh, और मुझे लगता था कि अभी बड़ा वक्त है कि कोई ऐसा स्टूडेंट मिले कि जो इस तरह की कोई अचीवमेंट करे, कोई वर्ल्ड टॉप करे, कोई डिस्टिंक्शन लाए, क्योंकि वो ख्वाबीदा सी बातें लगती हैं. बट दिस वाज जस्ट माय फर्स्ट ईयर. पहली दफ़ा मेरा ग्रेड 11 का एक्सपीरियंस था. एंड आई एम सो ग्लैड कि उसमें माशाल्लाह से एक नहीं 4 डिफरेंट स्टूडेंट्स, ऑल ऑफ देम वेरी ब्रिलियंट, उनके टॉप इन पाकिस्तान आए. एंड नॉट जस्ट इन केमिस्ट्री बट ऑल्सो इन फिज़िक्स, क्योंकि मैंने इस दफ़ा जो हमारे समर्स था उसमें फिज़िक्स की भी क्लासेस ली थी, केमिस्ट्री की भी ली थी. फिर देन आई ऑल्सो हेल्प सम स्टूडेंट्स विद दैट मैथ्स. सो या आई जस्ट फील लाइक आई वॉज वेरी ओवरवेलम्ड yesterday, and it just felt so good कि कुछ लोग हैं, मतलब ऑब्वियसली दी स्टूडेंट्स, उनकी मेहनत है, उनके माँ बाप की मेहनत है. ये डिस्टिंक्शन आप एक दिन में नहीं लेके आते या एक महीने में नहीं लेके आते. इसके पीछे 15-16 साल की एक देयर इज़ अ जर्नी देयर, एंड नॉट एवरीबडी हु हैज़ पास थ्रू दैट जर्नी गेट्स टू रियलाइज़ दैट और गेट्स टू मटीरियलाइज दैट. किस्मत का बहुत बड़ा रोल होता है. उनके बहुत से और क्लास फेलोज़ हैं हु आर इक्वली brilliant and equally hardworking, but kismat, of course, it plays a big role. There is a comic on XKCD on it's called On a Plate. I would suggest कि आप लोग उसको देखो, because किसी की भी किस्मत के, किसी भी की सक्सेस के पीछे बहुत बहुत से फैक्टर्स होते हैं. And I'm so glad that those factors actually came together to help these students out. और obviously these students also knew कि उनके अपनी requirements, अपने आप से उनकी demands क्या हैं, अपने आप से उनके standards क्या हैं, and they did not compromise on it. And that is the most important thing, that believe in yourself and knowing कि मुझे क्या चाहिए और उसके लिए मेहनत करना. और इसी तरह होता है. आई जस्ट फील लाइक आई एम रियली लकी कि मेरे पहले बैच में ही कुछ ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स मुझे मिल गए जिनकी किस्मत में और जिनकी मेहनत से ये चीज़ें होनी थी. बट या सो या जस्ट वांटेड टू शेयर दैट विद यू. तो इंशाल्लाह अरहम जैन आई कैन रीड योर मैसेजेस इंशाल्लाह विद योर बैच एज वेल. बट या अगेन किस्मत की चीज़ें होती हैं, किस्मत बहुत बड़ा रोल प्ले करती है. एंड अगेन आई वुड सजेस्ट आप वो ऑन अ प्लेट ज़रूर पढ़ना. ओके, सो आज का जो हमारा सेशन है, एंड फ्रॉम टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू कीप अ डेली लाइव स्ट्रीम. और हमारा टाइम थोड़ा सा चेंज होता रहेगा बिकॉज यू नो ईद है, पीपल हैव डिफरेंट स्केड्यूल्स. आई विल ऑल्सो बी विजिटिंग माई विलेज, so I will announce the timing and I will try to make sure that it is a convenient timing for everybody. But the point is, or the मकसद behind this whole session is कि हमें पता लगे कि थेरी पेपर में किस तरह से क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, किस तरह से उनको सॉल्व करना है, और क्या मिस्टेक्स हैं जो हम कर सकते हैं और हमने उन्हें अवॉइड कैसे करना है. Alright, so that's the whole point. Now, before we do that, before we start with that, I would like to solve at least one paper with you guys. And of course, पेपर का वक्त तो हमारे पास इट्स जस्ट 1 hour 30 minutes, बट इट माइट टेक मी अ लिटिल मोर देन दैट. सो मैंने सब कुछ क्लियर करके अभी मैं आपके लिए अवेलेबल हूँ. एंड वी विल बी कीपिंग दिस, वी विल बी सॉल्विंग दिस पेपर फॉर इफ इट टेक्स 1 hour 1 hour 30 minutes, even if it takes more, I'm here. And I will try to maintain that same thing for the days to come. उसके बाद obviously you have ATP, you have your MCQ paper, so उसके लिए भी I will keep those classes. Also, I have also talked to other teachers, and many of them have responded positively to keeping special sessions for you. And they will obviously help us out. I have made some custom papers जिनमें वो questions हैं जो कि बहुत से बच्चे गलत कर पाए हैं या जिनसे वो solve नहीं हुए. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. So there are some papers that I've made based on questions that in previous years many students had trouble with, or Cambridge ने बाद में when they release different material they tell that ये क्वेश्चन था जिसमें स्टूडेंट्स की मिस्टेक थी, या ये क्वेश्चन था जिसमें स्टूडेंट्स को ये मिस्टेक्स थी, या ये पॉसिबल आंसर्स थे जो कि गलत थे. सो आई विल बी शेयरिंग दोज पेपर्स विद यू एज वेल in the rapid revision group, also in the other groups that we had for the past paper revision session and all that. So I would suggest कि आप उन papers को भी एक दफ़ा attempt ज़रूर करना है in the last days that we have, ताकि आप लोगों के obviously they won't be as balanced as O levels का paper, because O levels के paper में उन्होंने पेपर इस तरह से बनाया होता है that an average student can get a B. ये papers मुश्किल हैं, and because they combine different questions from different years. लेकिन आप उनको अटैम्प्ट करें, उनकी मार्क्स ही आई शेयर विद यू एंड वी विल डिस्कस दैम इन दीज क्लासेस एज वेल. ऑलराइट, सो लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड विद वन ऑफ द बेसिक पेपर्स जो लास्ट ईयर का 2021 का पेपर है विंटर का. सो विल स्टार्ट विद दैट. अब इस पेपर की थ्रेशोल्ड मैं आपको बता देता हूँ, सो दैट बिफोर वी गेट started with it we can still see कि अच्छा इसमें students how did they perform. So this is variant 2-2 and as you know इसके marks 75 होते हैं. पेपर 85 marks का होता है, but you get 75 marks because the second section has 4 questions and you have to attempt 3. और अच्छा क्या होता है अगर आप चारों attempt कर लो, examiner takes the best 3. So if you have time at the end of the paper, solve them. हाँ, वो कोशिश करना कि आपका ऑब्वियसली वो आपको आता हो, और जो आपको आता है वो पहले अटैम्प्ट करें. जिसमें गलतियाँ होने का चांस ज़्यादा है वो बाद में करना. ऑल्सो इट इज़ इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट टू चेक योर पेपर आफ्टर यू डन विद इट. तो अगर आखिरी सवाल छोड़ना पड़ रहा है, छोड़ दो. इफ़ यू हैव टू लीव अ पेपर एट द एंड इन द सेक्शन 2, दैट्स फाइन. जस्ट मेक श्योर कि जो आपने किया है उसको आप रिवाइज करो. अगर आपके पास एंड पे 10 मिनट है और आपने उन्हीं 10 मिनट में यू हैव टू मेक अ डिसीजन, गो फॉर रिविजन. Don't go for attempting a new question because it is possible कि आपने वो जो उसको करके 5, 6, 10 मार्क्स लेने हैं, हो सकता है आप इतने मार्क्स अपने पिछले वाली गलतियों से you can save those. So I would suggest that always keep some time at the end of the paper for checking your paper. This is theory, this is O levels, and as you know in Pakistan we do the 2-2 paper. In Dubai, Jeddah, people who are joining from there, we do 2-1 paper. But there are many themes, there are many topics that are similar. In fact, the paper pattern is very similar for every series. तो जब आप प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हो, अगर आपने पेपर 2-2 मेरे साथ किया है, आई वुड सजेस्ट कि आप पेपर 2-1 अपने तौर पे करें एंड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि इसके बाद उसमें आपकी कोई इम्प्रूवमेंट हुई कि नहीं हुई. अच्छा, ये पेपर जो है ना, ये रिलेटिवली थोड़ा आसान सा था. सो फिर भी इसकी जो थ्रेशोल्ड थी दैट वाज 48. तो ए लेना बड़ा आसान है. 75 marks and you have to get just 48 and you get an A in this paper. Alright, and this means कि आपके पास you have considerable leeway. You have almost 27 marks जो कि आपके पास एक पूरी वेरिएशन है. 27 marks का आपका पूरा सेक्शन B होता है 30 marks का. So इतनी वेरिएशन है. So खुल के पेपर्स करें, अपनी तरफ से जो आपको आता है वो लिखें and of course रिवाइज करें. और इंशाल्लाह आई एम वेरी होपफुल कि आप लोगों के अच्छे मार्क्स आएंगे बिकॉज यू हैव वर्क फॉर इट. सो लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड. लेट्स नॉट डिले इट एनी फर्दर. इंस्ट्रक्शंस आर प्रीटी स्टैंडर्ड एवरी टाइम. यू कैन यूज़ कैलकुलेटर्स. कैलकुलेटर्स का बहुत से बच्चों को होता है कि कैन वी यूज़ ऑल द कैलकुलेटर्स और नॉट, और आर देयर एनी वेरिएशंस ऑफ कैलकुलेटर्स दैट वी कैन नॉट यूज़. मेरे पास ये कैलकुलेटर है एंड व्हेन आई वाज अ स्टूडेंट आई हैड द ओल्ड वर्जन ऑफ दिस सेम पेपर, दिस सेम कैलकुलेटर. ये जो कैलकुलेटर है ना, अभी ये 991EX है, उस वक्त 99ES प्लस था या ES था. लाइक बहुत पुरानी बात नहीं है. इट्स जस्ट व्हाट, अच्छा पुरानी बात है, इट्स बीन 13 years, सो थोड़ी सी पुरानी बात हो गई है ये. सो या बट वो पेपर में हम ले गए थे, कोई इशू नहीं हुआ था. एंड आई वुड सजेस्ट कि हाँ वो भी है. हमारे सीनियर्स ने हमें एक बात की थी, आई एम नॉट श्योर कि वो मुझे यहाँ पे बतानी चाहिए कि नहीं, बट व्हाट दे टोल्ड अस वाज कि अच्छा आपने पेपर के ऊपर लिखना होता है व्हाट मॉडल ऑफ कैलकुलेटर यू आर यूजिंग. सो आवर सीनियर सेड कि तुम अपना मॉडल, अगर तुम्हें लग रहा है ना कि दिस इज़ नॉट अलाउड, अपना मॉडल ना लिखो. मे बी राइट 100 MS और 82 MS, तो वो तो हर जगह चलता ही है. द प्रॉब्लम इज़ कि कैम्ब्रिज की जो गाइडलाइंस हैं वो थोड़ी सी वेग हैं. दे से दैट कैलकुलेटर्स हु आर नॉट एबल टू सॉल्व एल्जेब्रिक प्रॉब्लम्स वो अलाउड हैं, या एल्जेब्रिक प्रॉब्लम्स जो सॉल्व कर लेते हैं वो अलाउड नहीं हैं. प्रॉब्लम इज के विद दिस कैलकुलेटर देर आर वेज टू मैनिपुलेट एल्जब्रा, लेकिन एग्जैक्टली एल्जब्रा ये सॉल्व नहीं कर सकता. सो वो थोड़ा सा ना एक ग्रे एरिया है. एंड केम्ब्रिज डज नॉट टेल यू एग्जैक्ट मॉडल्स दैट आर अलाउड. सो इस वजह से 82 MS 100 MS इज़ अलाउड. और ये मैंने यूज़ किया है, मेरे एक्सपीरियंस में वी डिड नॉट हैव अ प्रॉब्लम. सो आई वुड सजेस्ट कि अगर आपके पास है कोई भी, आप कैलकुलेटर ले जाओ. हाँ, टेक्सास इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स के कुछ कैलकुलेटर्स हैं, कैसियो के कुछ कैलकुलेटर्स हैं विच आर, वो देख के पता लग जाता है कि यार ये कैलकुलेटर कम आईफोन जैसा ज़्यादा लग रहा है. सो ऑफ कोर्स डोंट टेक दोज कैलकुलेटर्स विद यू. एक तो कैलकुलेटर की बात होगी. सेकेंडली, कैलकुलेटर का कवर नहीं लेके जाना, बिकॉज कवर कैन हैव डिफरेंट थिंग्स रिटन ऑन इट, सो डोंट टेक दैट. फिर ये कि कैलकुलेटर को चेक कर लेना. द एडवांटेज ऑफ हैविंग अ कैलकुलेटर लाइक दिस वन कि इसमें सोलर सेल है, सो इट मेक श्योर कि अगर आपका खुदा न खास्ता यू हैव रियली बैड लक एंड द सेल स्टॉप्स वर्किंग, एट लीस्ट दैट विल वर्क. लेकिन अगर यू आर पैरानॉइड और इफ़ यू फील लाइक नहीं कोई प्रॉब्लम है, गेट इट चेक्ड. मैंने आज तक ज़िंदगी में कैलकुलेटर घुमाए ज़्यादा हैं, सेल कभी किसी का चेंज नहीं करवाया. बट इफ़ यू आर अ स्टूडेंट हु हैज़ अ कैलकुलेटर, उसका वक्त आ गया सेल चेंज करने का, सो आई वुड सजेस्ट दैट गेट द सेल चेंज फ्रॉम एनी वॉच शॉप और एनी, आई डोंट नो, किसी भी डिपार्टमेंटल स्टोर पे वो कर ही देंगे. सो दैट्स दैट. अच्छा, then what are the, yeah, erasable inks. Do not use them. Do not use them. In fact, there are, I've seen those pens जिनके अंदर you can you write them and then you can erase them by the tip on the other side. और what they do is कि आप उसको eraser की तरह का यूज़ करते हो और वो उसको कर देता है. Basically होता क्या है वहाँ पे? It does a redox reaction. The ink itself has a pigment in it. When you heat it, जब आप उसको रब करते हो, you are basically heating it. So there's a redox reaction and it goes colorless. So शुरू में उसका कोई कलर है, ब्लू हो सकता है, ब्लैक हो सकता है, बट देन इट गोज कलरलेस एंड देन यू माइट बी लाइक ये तो अब इरेज हो गया है और कोई ऐसा मैंने इरेजर यूज़ नहीं किया है. But that's not the case, because remember, how are your exams checked? Your exams are not physically sent to your the people who are going to check. They are sent to the examiners by scanning. So scanner is going to heat it. They have big scanners. British Council का office है इधर लाहौर में. They have big scanners and they use उनको जब ये piles and piles of these papers, they just pass through those scanners. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of heat. So that ink that you have, it might just reappear. Don't take the risk. Erasable pens नहीं लेके जाएं. तो अगर erasable pen नहीं लेके जा रहे और गलती हो जाती है तो what should we do in that case? Like if you make a mistake, what should you do? So let's suppose I needed to write alkane और मैंने लिख दिया alkene. What do I do with it now? It's simple. That's it. That's the solution. Just pass a line through this and write alkane. Done. आपको ये करने की जरूरत नहीं है, ठीक है? Don't do that. Just one line, strike it through, that's good enough. Now, let's suppose a student does this. The answer actually was alkene. And the student wrote alkene and then the student was like, wait a minute, ये मुझे नहीं करना था. This wasn't the right thing to do. So the student cuts it. And then students like, मैं अच्छा सोच के इसको दोबारा सही कर दूंगा और कर दूंगी. And you just submit the paper. आपने नहीं उसको ठीक किया. आपका आंसर ठीक है, you just cut it through. Examiner will mark it. And it is in the examiner guidelines. Examiner will mark it because it is legible. The examiner can still see and read that thing. But if you do this, examiner will not be able to read it, which means that even if you do the right thing, you will not be able to do that. But there is a catch over there. If you write two answers, in fact, if alkane is right, और आपने alkene को काटा नहीं है, you write it like this. One of them is right. Examiner will not choose. Examiner does not choose the answer for you, which means that if you have given two answers which are contradictory to each other, examiner will not give you a mark because examiner doesn't know whether you're sure what you're asking, you're going for or not. Similarly, if the correct answer was alkane and you cut it through, examiner will of course not give you a mark. So ये चीज़ ज़हन में रखनी है कि जो भी आप लिखते हो सोच के लिखो और अगर काटते हो तो just strike it through और दोबारा जो लिखते हो वो भी सोच के लिखो. ओके, सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अगर आपने काट दिया है, एक आंसर है और बाद में टर्न्स आउट वो ठीक था, आपने गलत नहीं लिखा है, यू विल गेट द मार्क. सो जब भी लिखना है सोच के लिखना है, जब भी काटना है एक लाइन से काटना है. That is very important. Remember this thing. Periodic table. When you go into the exam room, ये पेपर आपका है, ठीक है? You are the rightful owner of that thing. You are free to do whatever you want to do with it. So take that periodic table out. That's the least thing you can do. Take that periodic table out. SOE रखी होती है ना, side पे periodic table भी रख लेना. Going, flipping all the papers, going to the periodic table, coming back, wastes a lot of time. Don't do that. Take the periodic table out. Usually blank sheet होती है उसकी back पे, या अगर नहीं भी होती तो obviously अगर नहीं है तो फिर problem हो सकती है. If there's a question at the back of it, usually नहीं होता. It's a blank sheet. So take it out. अब blank sheet होती क्यों है? Blank sheet is there so if you need to do any working, any rough working, you can do it on the blank sheets. In fact, उनको भी you can tear them out and use them as rough sheets. You don't have to call them for extra sheets. You have those blank papers and usually at the end of the paper there are 1 or 2 blank sheets. You can write on them. You can use them for any extra space that you need to do, any extra working that you need to do. Just make sure whatever you put in your question paper, whatever you put in the answer space, सोच के लिखना है और एक लाइन से काटना है. ये रूल नहीं भूलना आपने. Okay? Okay. So far we have seen what we have to do. Do not write in many barcodes. I still don't understand why do they do this. मतलब कौन barcodes याद करके आएगा? But yeah, you never know. कोई याद करके आ भी सकता है. Appropriate units, usually moles के question में they give us the units. We don't need to mention the units. And unless they ask you to provide the unit, they will not take away any marks. So अगर आप grams में लिखना था, आपने नहीं लिखा, ठीक है, तो ठीक है, उसने अगर grams का नहीं पूछा था तो सही है. लेकिन अगर they said that you have to mention the unit, जो मैंने नहीं देखा recent papers में, तो फिर आपको obviously unit लिखना चाहिए. Okay, so that was the important bits and important rules that I wanted to share with you कि पेपर करते हुए किन चीज़ों का ख्याल रखना है. Now let's get started with the paper. Okay, section A. So there are a few questions here. So before I do this, I would like to answer them. First of all is the paper you're solving from past papers? Yes, it is the winter 2021 paper 2-2. Second, while attempting papers at home, what percentage should we be getting? Doesn't matter what percentage you get. It should be better than the previous percentage that you got. आपका जो मॉक में रिजल्ट आया उससे बेहतर होनी चाहिए. आपने आज जो पेपर किया कल वाला उससे बेहतर होना चाहिए. That's the only thing that matters. Okay, you're only in competition with yourself. Remember that. Not just for this paper, for your entire life. Second thing, if you get a dot and cross diagram in the CAIE, is it necessary to make it in pen? You can make the diagrams in pencil. That is acceptable. In fact, I think they do mention it here somewhere. Use a black or dark blue pen. You may use an HB pencil for any diagrams or graphs, which means that you can draw the dot and cross diagram in pencil. Okay? Alright, so let's get started. State, अब state का क्या मतलब है? State का मतलब होता है that you just mention 1 or 2 words कि वो answer किस तरह से होना है. In fact, this thing is called the command words. And if you Google 5070 syllabus, तो आपको वहाँ पर syllabus मिल जाएगा. Just go for the one in 2022 because that is unique. 2023 का different है, 2021 का different था. आपके साल में वो different है. So at the very end of that document, you will get a list of command words. Those command words are important because they tell you how to attempt a paper. And while we do this, मैं आपको बताता जाऊँगा कि किस पेपर को किस तरह से करना है. जैसे कि state का मतलब ये होता है that you just mention 1 or 2 words कि करना क्या है, कि वो है क्या. Okay, you don't need to give any reason. It implies a concise answer. Okay, so no support, no supporting argument, nothing is required, no explanation. So contains a cation with a charge of positive 2. That is, in this case, cobalt 2. That 2 in there is there because we want to mention it's a transition metal ion. So हमने वो बताना है. अच्छा, अब यहाँ पर हम करेंगे क्या? Do we write the formula or do we write the name? They have said state, which means कि कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. You can write any of them. And so let's go with it. Cobalt 2 chloride. But if you're not sure of the formula, you should be. But if you're not sure of the formula, write the name. But in the exam, if they give you that select one of these, okay, वो हम कुछ papers करेंगे जिसमें वो कहेगा select one of these or something, then you have to select from there. You can't just use a formula where they ask you for name, and you can't just use a name where they ask you for formula. Reacts with aqueous sodium hydroxide to form a red-brown precipitate. Red-brown precipitate, आपके syllabus में red-brown चीज़ें हैं कितनी? आपके syllabus में there is bromine which is red-brown or orange. You have bromine solution, वो भी brown होता है, and then you have iron 3. So which one gives iron 3 के साथ? Iron 3 chloride, that's the one. So iron 3 ion, when it reacts with hydroxide, so it forms iron 3 hydroxide, and that hydroxide is red brown, sorry, insoluble in water. Solubility rules, it's a very short lesson, मैं link भी यहाँ पे भेज दूंगा in case you need to review it. So insoluble in water, let's see. Chlorides are halogen ions, right? So all halogen ions are soluble except for lead, silver and mercury. हमारे syllabus में silver ही है, lead भी नहीं है, mercury भी नहीं है. So silver, there you go. So silver chloride is insoluble, we'll just pick that one, silver chloride. You also need to remember कि silver का charge +1 होता है, but हम लिखते नहीं हैं उसको. Okay, reacts with sodium hydroxide when warmed to produce a gas which turns damp red litmus blue. Reacts with sodium hydroxide, and there are two things that react with sodium hydroxide, but there is a difference. One thing reacts with sodium hydroxide and gives ammonia when heated. The other thing reacts with sodium hydroxide and aluminum to give ammonia. So there is a difference. Sodium hydroxide is used in both of them. One is ammonium that just gives it when it's heated because ammonium is acidic. The other is nitrate, which does a redox reaction with aluminum and sodium hydroxide to give us ammonia gas. So it's important. Okay, there is ammonium ion and there is a nitrate ion. दोनों में sodium hydroxide use होती है, दोनों ammonia देते हैं, but one does it with aluminum. The nitrate does it with aluminum. So in this case, it's going to be ammonium chloride. Again, ammonium chloride के बारे में एक और बड़ी important चीज़ है. It is acidic, just like all ammonium salts. It is acidic. ठीक है? और ammonium chloride has ammonium ions and chloride ions. ठीक है? So ये भी एक important बात है, which means it has ionic bonding. But then ammonium itself has covalent bonding. More importantly, dative covalent bond, जो कि हम O levels में नहीं पढ़ते, high achiever classes में we discuss that. But वैसे हमें उसकी जिक्र करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So ammonium chloride or any such salt has both ionic and covalent bonding. When added to water, can form an aqueous solution with pH 1. Aqueous solution of pH 1 का मतलब क्या है? Acidic solution. Okay. So which of them is acidic solution when you dissolve it in water? So yeah, हम देख लेंगे. All ammonium salts are acidic, but then they are weakly acidic. हमारे पास यहाँ पे कुछ बेहतर है. Hydrogen chloride is. Now, important thing to remember is that hydrogen chloride is not hydrochloric acid. It is only hydrochloric acid when you dissolve it in water. All acids are soluble in water, but obviously when you dissolve them, that's when they act like acids. So this is hydrogen chloride. Do not say hydrochloric acid, okay? This is hydrogen chloride. If you want to write HCl, that's fine. Moving on, the question is about pollutant gas. If you have any questions anywhere, you can just send that to you. Write that in the chat. अगर आपको लगता है कि chat में you won't be able to do justice with it, you can send it to me in what you call voice note. Okay. So just give me a minute. Yep. Okay, so let's do this one. State which two gases in the list show that incomplete combustion has taken place. So what happens when you get incomplete combustion? Incomplete combustion will provide carbon monoxide. It will provide just carbon. Yes, Taha, this is being recorded. So incomplete combustion produces that. But water vapor is always produced. So water vapor is not really a way for us to know कि हाँ इससे incomplete combustion हुई है. Because complete में भी water vapor तो होता ही है. So the only ones that show us exactly that yes, incomplete has happened in this case is octane, because octane was the fuel, वो तो burn हुआ ही नहीं, वो वैसे ही बाहर निकल गया. Okay, so for example, if the car is leaky and there is some petrol coming out of the exhaust pipe, you know right away that it's not burning. So if it's not burning, it's incomplete, right? So octane, the fuel itself is coming out, and second is what? Carbon monoxide. So again, carbon monoxide. You can write the formula, you can write the name in this case, because they did not ask you to name or give the formula. They just said state. So बस ठीक है, state कर दो. Describe a test for carbon dioxide. Really, really simple, but examiner what they've started doing is कि वो हम याद करते थे that turns lime water milky. That's one whole thing that we remember. But examiner has asked you to break it down, that whether you understand it or not. Turns lime water milky is not just a test, it's also the result. So the test is कि use lime water, test that thing with lime water. So the test is pass through lime water. And what's the observation? Turns milky. So examiner is just asking you to break it down to make sure कि हाँ आपको समझ भी है जो आप बोल रहे हो. Also just saying turns milky, you can also say makes white precipitate. That's also fine. Okay. Which chapter has the most question in the past papers? Actually, I can't really say because it varies every year. But no chapter is left out. That I can guarantee. Okay. How to know what color the element is about? That's a kind of a vague question. But if you want to know different colors and if you want to get a list of those, there's another video of mine. Everything you need to memorize for O levels. You can watch that. 1 घंटे की वीडियो है, सारे कलर्स उसमें डिस्कस कर लिए. Give one other natural source of methane in the atmosphere. So what's the other natural source? It is the decomposition of vegetative matter. Okay, so decomposition of vegetative matter. So yeah, bacterial effect or something like that. Okay, so decomposition of vegetative matter. Huzaifa said decomposition of vegetation. हाँ वो भी ठीक होगा. Yep. Complete this sentence about the effect of an increase in the concentration of methane in the atmosphere. Methane is a dash gas, okay, because it absorbs and then re-emits infrared radiation. Infrared radiation is the one that's associated with heat. So methane is a greenhouse gas because greenhouse gases are what do this. This contributes to an increase in temperature of the atmosphere, which is called enhanced global warming. But I think यहाँ पे दो spaces हैं, तो we'll just say global warming. Global warming itself is not bad. Enhanced global warming is bad. Because global warming, we need it to some extent for the climate to stay and for weathers to come and go. सारा कुछ global warming की वजह से आता है, otherwise तो ये मार्स बन जाए ना. But enhanced global warming की वजह से फिर Venus बन जाएगा, sorry. So yeah, cars are fitted with catalytic converters to reduce the amount of harmful pollutant gas from car exhausts. Okay, describe how catalytic converters remove pollutant gases from car exhaust. Now, in this case, examiner has asked us to describe. What do we do in case they ask us to describe? So the answer for that is that it requires candidates to state in words using diagrams. So you can use diagrams, the main points of the topic. It is often used with reference either to particular phenomena or particular experiment. ठीक है. अच्छा, अगर तो किसी चीज़ के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं तो आपने की टर्म्स यूज़ करने, और अगर किसी एक्सपेरिमेंट की बात करें तो आपने डायग्राम बनानी है, आपने उसके बारे में ऑब्जर्वेशंस बतानी है. ठीक है. सो डिस्क्राइब जो है ना उसमें डिटेल देनी होती है बेसिकली, बट अगेन रीज़न अभी भी नहीं देनी. ओके, यू जस्ट हैव टू टेल व्हाट इज़ हैपनिंग. अगर वो डिस्क्राइब एंड एक्सप्लेन करे देन यू गिव अ रीज़न. Okay, so describe is just about telling कि है क्या, but in words. So in this case, what's happening? First of all, car के catalytic converters को gases कौन सी मिलती हैं? उसने बोला pollutant gases. Let's name the pollutant gases. And how does it convert them to safer gases? That's what you have to talk about. So we'll say that it converts nitrogen oxides and carbon monoxide and even hydrocarbons to nitrogen, carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so that's what a catalytic converter does. और उसकी वजह से हमारे पास, so there are 3 harmful gases. There's carbon monoxide, there's nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen dioxide. There's also some hydrocarbons that are not burnt. And this converts them to nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and water. Okay? Even if you want to skip on the hydrocarbon part, that's fine. The other 2 are more important. Okay? Now, how does it do that is not important. Because again, you don't need to give a reason. This is not explanation. This is just description. What it actually does is very complicated. In fact, catalytic converter जब मैंने इसको पहली दफ़ा पढ़ा था, I was blown away, क्योंकि इसके अंदर इतने different और opposite reactions हो रहे होते हैं at the same time. So this is a marvel of engineering कि उन्होंने किस तरह से इसको डिज़ाइन किया है कि बिल्कुल ही ऑपोजिट रिएक्शंस हो रहे होते हैं लेकिन एक ही जगह पे हो रहे हैं और रिजल्ट बिल्कुल ठीक आ रहे हैं. सो या magnesium ribbon reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. Now here's a rule. आपको the moment you see an element in an equation, that's redox. So ये magnesium वाली आपको element मिल गया है ना magnesium, या आपको हाइड्रोजन मिल गई है, that's clearly redox. अगर वो कभी हमसे पूछे MCQs में पूछ लेता है, ठीक है. Sarah is asking, do we talk about platinum? We don't need to because they have said describe how it converts it. So we just need to mention कहाँ से शुरू किया, कहाँ से end किया. You can say that using catalyst. Okay, so but उसके नाम ही catalytic converter, you don't really need to mention कि अब Wahab is asking होता क्या है, is it in our syllabus? The detail is not in our syllabus. Some of it is in A-level syllabus और A-levels में हम थोड़ी सी एक्स्ट्रा डिटेल भी बच्चों को बता देते हैं. उनको पता नहीं लगता कि कहाँ पे रुकना है और कहाँ पे सिलेबस शुरू कहाँ से हो रहा है, एंड पे कहाँ पे हो रहा है. सो या बट वैसे इसके बारे में इफ़ यू वांट टू स्टडी तो आई कैन गिव यू अ रियली लिंक टू अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग आर्टिकल फॉर दिस. इफ़ द क्वेश्चन वॉज एक्सप्लेन, तब हम क्या करते हैं? तब वी माइट वॉन्ट टू मैंशन एन इक्वेशन एंड वी माइट वॉन्ट टू मैंशन दैट द कैटलिस्ट उनका नाम लेते हैं, हम प्लैटिनम का नाम ले देते, रोडियम का नाम ले देते. बट अगेन वो हमारे एग्ज़ाम में, हमारे सिलेबस में कैटलिटिक कन्वर्टर की इंटरनल वर्किंग है नहीं. अगर होती तो फिर हम एक्सप्लेन करते, ओके, और फिर हम रीजनिंग देते ऑफ कोर्स. द ग्राफ शोज द वॉल्यूम ऑफ हाइड्रोजन गैस प्रोड्यूस्ड एट 20 डिग्री सेल्सियस. ओके, सो हाउ डू ग्राफ्स चेंज? ग्राफ के बारे में दो चीज़ें हैं जिनसे हमें ग्राफ के रिएक्शन का पता लगता है. फर्स्ट इज द ग्रेडियंट. सो द ग्रेटर द ग्रेडियंट द फास्टर द रिएक्शन. दैट्स इंपॉर्टेंट. हमें ग्रेडियंट से पता लगता है कि रिएक्शन कितना तेज़ या स्लो है. And then when the reaction gives us a flat line, that flat line is telling us कि reaction complete हो गया. Usually students forget to talk about that flat line. You have to mention that. That's important. Different factors that affect rate of reaction क्या करते हैं? There's only one factor that affects the height and the width of the line. कि मतलब वो gradient भी change करता है और वो flat line को भी ऊपर नीचे करता है. That is concentration, the amount that you put in. But any other factor, time, pressure, catalyst or surface area, they all just change the gradient. Flat line को वो change नहीं कर सकते, वो जहाँ पे है वो वहीं पे रहेगी. It's only concentration that affects कि flat line ऊपर जाएगी या नीचे जाएगी. तो अगर कभी एग्जाम में flat line ऊपर नीचे जा रही है, that means कि concentration change हो रही है. और अगर gradient आगे पीछे जा रहा है तो that shows कि आपका कोई और factor है जिससे rate change हो रहा है. Okay, so yeah. The experiment is repeated using a lower concentration. Lower concentration है तो इसका मतलब है flat line lower हो जाएगी. The volume of acid used in all other conditions are the same. ठीक है. Draw a line on the grid to show how the volume produced changes when with time when the reaction is done. ठीक है. So lower concentration है तो flat line भी कम होगी, gradient भी कम होगा. That's it. So gradient भी कम होना है, flat line भी. There's two things. दोनों change हो जाएंगी. So yep. They haven't given us any values तो हम कोई भी line लगा सकते हैं. I'm going to draw this one. There you go. तो हमने बना दिया कि it has become it is less steep because it is lower concentration obviously, and it is becoming flat much later because it is slower. Okay. Describe and explain. Now we get to the idea where we have to give a reason. Using ideas about collision. उसने आपको बता भी दिया कि reason कैसे देनी है. कितना आसान है. Between particles, how the rate of the reaction changes when magnesium powder is used instead of ribbon. So हम इसको underline कर लेते हैं. Powder का ribbon से मुकाबला है. That is the thing that we're trying to compare. Okay, so powder compared to ribbon. So what you're going to talk about? You're going to talk about कि एक में particles की collision ज़्यादा है, एक में particle की collision कम है. ये एक मार्क है, ये description है. आप बताएंगे कि कम या ज़्यादा हो रहा है, ठीक है? But then second part is about the reasoning. Reasoning collision से आएगी. So we'll say that obviously the description part is that how the rate changes when magnesium powder is used. So we'll say it increases. The rate increases in powder. Okay, we can mention that, or you can just say increases. वो भी काफ़ी होगा, ठीक है? In powder. Okay, then we'll give a reason. More particles are exposed for us, or more particles are exposed, so more frequent collisions lead to more faster reaction or something like that. Okay, so we have mentioned कि collision ज़्यादा हैं और collision frequency is the important part. अच्छा, यहाँ पे अगर आप कहते थे ना more collisions, that would be incomplete because when you're saying more collisions, then you also have to mention time. But if you're saying more frequent collisions, उसमें time का factor खुद ही आ जाता है, ठीक है? तो हम कहेंगे so more frequent collisions, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to explain further कि more particles are exposed, कैसे exposed हैं, you can also say कि surface area is more, ठीक है? Or more particles exposed per unit volume or per unit area, you can also mention that. Okay, so that also mentions. Let's see, one answer that I've gotten is surface areas increases, hence there are more exposed particles that can collide, more frequent collisions, more successful collisions. So those are like similar to each other, so just use one of them. Thus rate of reaction increases. Perfect. What I usually do is कि मैं पहले आंसर दे देता हूँ कि वो rate increases, describe वाला part पहले कर देता हूँ, and then I give a reason. But that's also right. You have described it at the end and explained it first. That's also acceptable. More fruitful and head-on collisions, ठीक है, we can mention that. They are conveying the same idea. Can we mention surface area? Of course we can mention surface area. Surface area की वजह से ही तो more particles are exposed. Okay. Describe and explain. Again, we have to describe, we have to explain, not in that order though. Using ideas about collision, how the rate of reaction changes when temperature is decreased. So temperature कम हो रहा है. Usually students ने याद किया होता है, रटा मारा होता है, that temperature is increased तो क्या होता है? तो यहाँ पे decrease कर दिया उसने. So again, we just need to know that when the temperature is decreased, so what happens? The description part is that rate decreases at lower temperature. Again, this lower temperature part, you don't really need to mention that, but मैं usually ज़्यादा describe कर देता हूँ, कोई confusion ना रहे, ठीक है? Yeah, but of course examiner को समझ आ ही जाएगा अगर आप खाली decreases भी लिख देते हो. Okay, and now we'll explain it. So we'll explain that particles have less kinetic energy. Use the complete terms. Do not say KE. हम आमतौर पे प्रैक्टिस में तो KE या TEMP for temperature लिख देते हैं. यहाँ पे एग्जामिनर को नहीं पता कि आप what do you mean by KE, ठीक है? वो कराची इलेक्ट्रिक समझ ले. So इस वजह से less kinetic energy, so less frequent collisions or less collisions per unit time. If you're saying less or more collisions, you have to mention time, but you can also use the word frequent and that will convey the same idea. It is not about potential energy, so don't use that word. Kinetic is the term because temperature is related to average kinetic energy. A levels में you will study के exactly क्या हो, नहीं exactly A levels में तो नहीं पढ़ते हैं, मतलब थोड़ा सा डिटेल में आप A levels में इसको देखेंगे कि how is it related to temperature. Calculate the maximum volume in dm cube of hydrogen formed. So ये बहुत ही आसान क्वेश्चन है, but this question was actually many students made a mistake here क्योंकि इसमें ना 24 दो दफ़ा यूज़ होता है, and we will see that it's used in different contexts. So हम इसको देखते हैं. Calculate the maximum volume. So we have to calculate the volume. Okay, that's the thing. In dm cube of hydrogen formed when 1.68 grams of magnesium react. So they have given us the mass and they have asked us for the volume. In any stoichiometric problem, हमारे पास तीन चीज़ें हैं. They're going to compare one thing with another thing. दो चीज़ें होंगी, दो components होंगे, दो substances होंगे. They're going to compare them. But how are they going to do it? They're going to give you information about the first one. They're going to ask you information about the second one. Now, how do you do it? 3 steps. First, moles of the first thing, जिसकी भी information you have, उसकी moles निकालेंगे. That's the first step. Second step, moles of the second thing, the one that you need information for. And third, the answer. There's always 3 steps to any stoichiometric problem, and those are, you find moles of the first thing. In this case, that's magnesium. So we'll find moles of magnesium. I usually write N magnesium to specify कि मेरे पास किस चीज़ के moles निकाल रहा हूँ. So that is 1.68 divided by 24, which is obviously the AR for magnesium. Magnesium, as you know, is a metal. तो वो ऐसे ही एग्जिस्ट करता है इन एटॉमिक फॉर्म, इट डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट इन मॉलिक्यूल्स और एनीथिंग. सो 0.07, that is the number of moles of magnesium. Now we use mole ratio to figure out moles of the second. I don't have an equation for this, so why not just write that? So magnesium uh, reacts with HCl, okay, produces magnesium chloride. You need to be well versed in writing these formulas, गलती नहीं करनी. And now we're comparing magnesium over here. So magnesium over here, sorry, magnesium over here with hydrogen over here. Okay, so the mole ratio is 1 to 1. That means number of moles of hydrogen is also going to be 0.07. Same number of moles. Okay, and then that's the second step. Third step, find the answer. So volume of hydrogen is going to be moles multiplied by 24. And turns out that's also kind of like this thing. Sorry, this 24 multiplied with 0.07. Like that's exactly what it is. So yeah, we are going to get 1.68 again. And that is why when students saw this, they were like, wait a minute, मेरा answer गलत हो गया. I'm getting 1.68 again. And that is like thinking कि मैंने 3 MCQs किए हैं, तीनों का C आया तो मतलब सारा गलत हो गया. They are independent. जब आप उसको solve कर रहे थे, आपने देखा था कि मैंने 1.68 लेके आना है किसी तरह? नहीं देखा था ना, it was independent. Just like that, getting this answer should not confuse you, although it did many of your seniors. But 1.68 is the answer. Now there's another method of stoichiometry जो मैंने आपको सिखाया है. So I'll just quickly go through that one. So we have magnesium, so we'll copy that. We have hydrogen, we'll copy that. We have 1 mole of magnesium is 24 grams. 1 mole of hydrogen is 24 dm cube. That means 1.68 grams will be equal to x dm cube. You cross multiply, you'll get 1.68. देख के भी नज़र आ रहा है 24 से 24 है तो 1.68 to 1.68. This is obviously the fastest method that I know of, and obviously I'm really proud of it because I made it myself when I was in grade 10. But yeah, you can use this. Just make sure that if you're using it, mention all the information that you have. Okay, magnesium is a good reducing agent. Describe a test for reducing agents. So if you want to test for a reducing agent, you use an oxidizing agent. If you want to test for an oxidizing agent, you use a reducing agent. In our syllabus, we have 2 agents. We have potassium iodide, which is a reducing agent. So we use it to test for oxidizing. And we have KMNO4. Pay attention. This N is small. This O is capital. This is a very common mistake what students do. वो N को capital बना सकते हैं या O को small बना देते हैं. Examiner will take your mark away because this is not what KMNO4 is if you spell it wrong. N has to be small to mean manganese. If you make it a capital N, that's nitrogen. O small is, there's no element with O small. तो इस वजह से this would be wrong. Okay, so we will use potassium manganate 7. That's the full name. Using an acid is important, so you can mention that acidified potassium manganate 7. If you don't write acidified in O levels or IGCSE, that's fine. You will not lose marks. In A levels you do, but in O levels हम इतने particular नहीं होते. So you can say that acidified KMNO4. Obviously the test is that you pass it through that, but you can just write the thing and get away with it. And then you mention the colors. The observations are that it goes from purple to colorless. Okay, you can actually write this arrow thing and that will get you a mark. But if you don't want to do that, so you will say that purple to colorless, and that's also fine. Okay, moving on. Alkanes are homologous series of hydrocarbons. So they've used I'm sorry Sarah, what oh, you lost marks because of acidified. So I'm sure your teacher was बड़े अच्छे टीचर हैं, वो आपको ट्रेन कर रहे हैं कि आप गलतियाँ ना करो. So I think बहुत अच्छी आदत है उनकी. Yeah. Alkanes are a homologous series. So homologous, as you know, is groups of compounds with same general formula, similar chemical properties, trends in physical properties, and they differ in CH2 in the successive compounds. And then series of hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are compounds with just carbon and hydrogen. That's it. Or carbons with hydrogen and carbon only. That only part is important. The boiling point, melting point density of alkanes increases as the number of carbon atoms increases. Yes. Give one other physical property of alkene which increases as the number of carbon atoms increases. So उन्होंने हमें boiling point बता दिया, melting point बता दिया, density बता दिया. So density की वजह से उनकी volatility पे effect आएगा, viscosity पे effect आएगा. I think that's it. Those are the two that you can mention. So volatility or viscosity, you can mention any of them. Okay. Uh, Give two other characters. Again, you don't need to give a reason for why that is. Gets less smoky. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about that thing burning and producing less smoke, or because these things are colorless? So if you evaporate them, उनके colorless flames होते हैं. Okay, so that's important. Flammability decreases because again they are bigger molecules, so activation energy increase कर जाती है. But that's not a physical property, that's a chemical property, flammability, because it has to react with oxygen to burn. Physical property वही viscosity and volatility ही बनेगी. Give two other characteristics of a homologous series. So we just talked about it. मैंने चार mention की थी, you can mention any of one of them or two of them. Two typical reactions of alkanes are combustion and cracking. Okay, combustion is when they react with oxygen to give carbon dioxide and water, and cracking is when you break them down using catalyst, using heat. Catalyst name is not important for O levels, and that is when they become smaller compounds. Our smaller compounds can be alkanes, they can be alkenes, they can be hydrogen gas. Okay, so there's three different products that we usually get from any of them. Iman's question is that in question number 4a, can we mention MR? MR depends on the molecular size, right? So again, I wouldn't say that MR has to do with physical properties. I wouldn't say that. Okay. So let's say, state the name of another typical chemical reaction of alkanes and the reactant needed to. So that's substitution. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. So substitution, and you need ultraviolet light for that, because ultraviolet light basically breaks the bonds between chlorine and chlorine. You can also mention sunlight. That will also be acceptable, but not exactly right. Okay, but that's not a reactant. Ultraviolet light is more like a condition. We should mention chlorine. Okay, chlorine is the thing that reacts. Ultraviolet light is just the condition. Alkenes are produced by cracking alkanes. Okay. State two conditions needed for cracking alkanes. So you need a catalyst, you need heat. That's what you need. So high temperature or heat and catalyst. You don't need to mention what the catalyst is. It's aluminum oxide, but it's not required. Tridecane can be cracked to produce an alkene with 4 carbon atoms and 1 other hydrocarbon only. So they have told us what the products are. The good thing about cracking is that you can make products of your own choice depending on what you get. Okay. Again, if you're not sure about the catalyst, don't name it. It's not required. तो नाम लिखने की ज़रूरत क्या है? You have alkene with 4 carbons. So that will be C4H8, right? CnH2n or CH2n, that's the general formula. So it's going to be C4H8. And they're saying produce an alkene with 4 carbon atoms and 1 other hydrocarbon only. So what do you get if you remove this one? You get C9H20. Yep, H20. So yeah, that's it. That's the other hydrocarbon that you're getting. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब आप कहते हो कि नहीं ये मैंने नहीं करना, मुझे कुछ और लिखना है, तो आप लिख दो. Just make sure that whatever the other product is, you must balance the equation. So you can be like, अच्छा मैं 2 ये बना लेता हूँ. Okay, you have made 2 of them. So what will you do now? So 2 times 4, that's 8. 8 carbons away. So that's C5 left over. And this is going to be 16 carbons gone. So you're left with what? 12 carbons. So C5H12. Okay, you get your answer. बिल्कुल ठीक है. आप कहते हो कि नहीं मुझे 3 बनाने हैं, तो आप 3 बना लो. Same method. Just give the product as you want. So you'll get the marks. Ramisa's question is that if we write out of lines, will the examiner read that or will it not be scanned? So here's the thing. Look at this page. This is the page that they're going to scan. If you write it here, that will be scanned. If you write it here, that will be scanned. If you write it here, that will be scanned. यहाँ पे तो नीचे लिखने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, तो आपका आंसर लाइन से बाहर चला जाता है, दैट्स फाइन. बट अगर कोई ऐसा पेज हो जैसे ये है, इस पर आप यहाँ पे लिखना शुरू कर दो, डोंट डू दैट, बिकॉज दीज मार्कर्स, आपका क्या ख्याल है ये क्यों लिखे हुए हैं? ये कंप्यूटर के लिए बताया मैं उन्होंने. उनको ज़रूरत नहीं है कि हर पेपर के एंड पे लिख दें 5070022. उनको क्या ज़रूरत है? उनको पता है उन्होंने कौन सा पेपर बनाया. दीज मार्कर्स आर देयर ताकि कंप्यूटर जब उसको स्कैन कर रहा है ना, तो एक तो आइडेंटिफाई कर ले कि कौन सा पेपर है, सेकंड कंप्यूटर को पता हो कि इस पॉइंट से ऊपर ऊपर मैंने स्कैन करना है, इसके नीचे नहीं स्कैन करना. ठीक है. पीपल हु स्टडी कंप्यूटर साइंस नो अबाउट ऑप्टिकल मार्क रिकग्निशन एंड ऑप्टिकल कैरेक्टर रिकग्निशन. सो these markers are there for the examiner, for the computer to know कि मैंने सॉफ्टवेयर को कहाँ से मैंने क्रॉप करना है इसको. सो इस वजह से don't write much below the lines. Okay. A hydrocarbon contains 88.9% carbon by mass. Okay, so I have carbon, it's hydrocarbon, so carbon and hydrogen only. 88.9, and the remaining one would be what, 11.1. Okay, so now we'll divide this by 12. AR, always divide by AR, even if you get chlorine 35.5, because empirical formula hai, they are not talking about molecules of chlorine. Even if chlorine is part of a compound, it's not present as a molecule in there. It's present as individual atoms bonded wherever, however they are. So yeah, divide the other one with 1 and you get this one would be what, 88.9 divided by 12, that is 7.4. This is 11.1. Divide this by smaller numbers, so 7.4, 7.4. What do we get? We get 1 and 1.5. Don't approximate. Okay, do not approximate. In fact, double it. So double the whole thing. Okay, and now you're going to get 2 and 3. So I'll say C2H3. And that's my empirical formula. Now notice that I did write a little below the line, but that's fine. काफ़ी space है. Examiner, the paper will be checked. कोई मसला नहीं. Okay, lithium reacts with aqueous zinc iodide. Okay, now by the way, how do I know this? क्योंकि what they do is they have this software जिस पे वो check करवाते हैं. So I did a exercise with Cambridge examiners जिसमें I got to like see the software कि वो किस तरह से चलता है and all that. काफ़ी मज़े की चीज़ है. Lithium reacts with aqueous zinc iodide. Again, can anybody tell me why just by looking at it you can see that this is a redox reaction? Yeah, Arham is right. There's an element in there. So that element, lithium and zinc, they're both elements, and based on that, we can clearly see that haan, this one is redox. Explain by referring to the equation why this reaction involves both oxidation and reduction. अब इसमें आपने ना दोनों की बात करनी है और आपने इंडिविजुअली बताना है कि कहाँ रिडक्शन हो रही है, कहाँ पे ऑक्सीडेशन हो रही है. एंड इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू रेफर टू द इक्वेशन, क्योंकि उन्होंने बोले अब इक्वेशन में हम किसको कहेंगे कि वो ऑक्सीडाइज हुआ. वी हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई द थिंग. सो विल से lithium atom oxidizes to oxidizes by losing electron, and zinc ion, that ion terms is important because you have to specify which particle you're talking about. You have zinc atom here, you have zinc ion here. You have to mention कौन क्या कर रहा है. So zinc ion reduces by gaining 2 electrons. Okay, so that's important. You have to give a reason because you have to explain and you have to identify from the equation कि क्या कर रहा है. Acidified aqueous silver nitrate is added to zinc iodide. Okay, so you have iodide. The moment you see silver ion being used, that should be a hint that you are basically using this test for halogens. So the observation is yellow solid. Okay, when aqueous bromine reacts with aqueous zinc iodide, a brown solution is formed. Okay, why not? Because displacement hogi. Iodide is You are adding bromine to iodide, bromine will displace it. So name the products of this reaction. Now they're not asking you कि color बताएं किसका क्या color and all that. You just have to specify के products क्या हैं. The products are zinc bromide. So you have to name it. So यहाँ पे if you write the formula, you will not get a mark. And the other one is iodine. So it's important to mention iodine, not iodide. Okay, you do not lose marks for spelling mistakes, but for critical spelling mistakes, the ones in which chemical meaning changes, of course आप iodide की जगह iodine लिखोगे या iodine की जगह iodide लिखोगे, that's a totally different chemical answer. So इस वजह से वो गलत हो जाएगा. Explain why aqueous bromine, the formula of zinc bromide should be ZnBr2. हमें वो चाहिए नहीं है, but I'm just correcting it. It's not ZnBr. Explain why aqueous bromine does not react with aqueous zinc chloride. So we'll say that bromine is less reactive than chlorine, or we'll say that chlorine is more reactive than bromine. One of the two. That will give us the mark. Okay. I think this is the last question from this section A. So then we'll move on to section B after this. Phosphorus reacts with hydrogen to produce phosphine. Okay. Now phosphorus is in group 5. Phosphine, I can expect it to be just like ammonia. But let's see. Complete the energy profile diagram for this reaction. It's endothermic. So of course it's going to start somewhere. Flat line to show reactants. Go up, down, flat line again to show the products. Some students are like, नहीं हमने तो ये straight lines नहीं बनानी, हमने curve बनानी. तो ठीक है, curve बना लो. No problem. If you're like, नहीं मुझे ये भी नहीं बनानी, मुझे ये बनाना है, बना लो. No problem. As long as you're clearly showing increase in energy, decrease in energy, products lower than reactants, you're fine. The shape doesn't matter. हमने कौन सा thermodynamically इसको measure करके shape बनाई है? Okay. Now this one right now is exothermic. This one is not for this reaction. सही है? इस reaction के लिए हमें endothermic को बनाना है. तो अब हम क्या करेंगे? We'll simply move this part above it. So अब ऐसे हो जाएगा. There you go. Now you have to make sure कि आपके labels ठीक हो. So they have asked us for reactants. Do not write R or P. Do not write that. Examiner को नहीं पता R और P क्या है. ठीक है? So this is reactant. जी, I know this is exo. This one's endo. And this one is products. And then you draw the arrows. For delta H. Delta H कौन सा वाला है? That starts at the reactant and at the product. That is delta H. Okay? And there is a common mistake here that students make an arrow like this. That's not the arrow you're required to make. Starts at the reactant, ends at the product. Here they have not asked us for that, but अगर activation energy का भी बनाना हो तो it will be like this one. It will be one-headed arrow and you can mark it like this कि ये top के साथ connected है. It will not be a double-headed arrow. Okay, just know about that. Of course, in this question it wasn't required. Explain in terms of bond breaking and bond forming. So they have asked us for a reason, but they have also asked us for the terminologies that we have to use. Why the reaction is endothermic? So why is this reaction endothermic? You have Assalamu alaikum, Dragon Ball Super. Interesting name. Bond breaking and bond forming. So we have to talk about कि अच्छा ठीक है एंडोथर्मिक है, एनर्जी आ रही है जा रही है, बट बॉन्ड ब्रेकिंग से उसका ताल्लुक क्या है? लेट्स जस्ट फर्स्ट एस्टैब्लिश दैट कनेक्शन. सो विल से दैट एनर्जी इज अब्सॉर्ब्ड इन बॉन्ड ब्रेकिंग. या तो आप पूरा वो लिख दो कि एनर्जी अब्सॉर्ब हो रही है बॉन्ड ब्रेकिंग में, रिलीज हो रही है बॉन्ड मेकिंग में, या सारा, या आपके पास थोड़ी सी लाइन है तो आप लिख देते हैं एनर्जी अब्सॉर्ब्ड इन बॉन्ड ब्रेकिंग इज ग्रेटर देन एनर्जी रिलीज्ड इन बॉन्ड मेकिंग. एंड देयर यू गो, we've done it. All right, so there you go. So I've gotten a few answers. All of them seem correct. Yes, very good. Okay, phosphine reacts with oxygen to form phosphorus 5 oxide P4O10 and water. Complete the equation. We just have to balance it. On the right side I have 4 phosphorus, so I'll put 4 here, Then I have hydrogen to balance, so 12 hydrogen, so I'll put 6 here. Now, how am I balancing this? I'm just using ratios, okay? On the left side, I have 12 hydrogen, on the right side, I have 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6, so 6. And then I do oxygen. I have 6 oxygen with water and 10 with P4O10, so 16 on the right side. So on this side, 16 divided by 2, 8. There you go. नहीं, I do. गुस्सा क्यों करते हैं? Yeah. So there you go. 16, and you've balanced it out. And we are done with section A. I'll take a 2-minute break here, and we'll come back and solve section B. I will solve all the four questions, और फिर हम उसको देख लेते हैं अगर आपके कोई उसके बाद भी क्वेश्चन हो गए. Alright, so I'll come back in 2 minutes. All right, let's resume. I was just looking at the comments. ए लेवल्स को ए लेवल्स में देखेंगे भाई, अभी क्यों बातें कर रहे हो उसको? ये क्या बात हुई कि ए लेवल्स बहुत मुश्किल है? सो व्हाट? वर यू गोइंग टू ग्रेड 5 स्टूडेंट्स एंड टेलिंग देम कि ओ तुम लोगों को तो ईजी, यू हैव इट ईजी, और 9th में आगे तुम्हें देखेगा? और 9th अगर कर भी ली तो कौन सा कोई तीर मार लिया? हर साल 10,000 बच्चे करते हैं. सो या हर बंदे के अपने चैलेंजेस हैं, एंड वी हैव टू वर्क विद आवर चैलेंजेस. सो डोंट वरी, प्रेशर में नहीं आना लोगों. ओके, let's do this one. Sodium is a metal in group 1 of the periodic table. नहीं ड्राओ नहीं भाई, I need people to study chemistry. ओके, मुश्किल से इंटरेस्ट बनता है लोगों का। केमिस्ट्री बहुत अच्छा सब्जेक्ट है पीपल, आपको आ जाएगा, डोंट वरी, मेहनत करेंगे आ जाएगा। अच्छा खैर, लेट्स नॉट गेट डिस्ट्रैक्टेड इधर। थैंक यू। State two differences in physical properties of sodium and diamond. ओके, सारा वैसे ये बात तो ठीक है, बिल्कुल। ओके, सो सोडियम एंड डायमंड बहुत से डिफरेंसेस हैं। फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज होती कौन कौन सी हैं? फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज वर इज इट सॉफ्ट और हार्ड, इज इट हाई मेल्टिंग पॉइंट, लो मेल्टिंग पॉइंट, इज इट कंडक्टिंग इलेक्ट्रिसिटी और नॉट, डज इट डिजॉल्व इन वाटर और नॉट। ओके, ये सारी फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज हैं। तो यहाँ पे we will say that sodium is soft, diamond is hard. We can mention that. Sodium conducts electricity, diamond does not. Sodium has low melting point, diamond has high melting point. We can mention any two of them and they'll be fine. Okay. An ion of sodium has the symbol this. Okay. Reduce the number of proton, neutrons, and electrons in this sign. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Sodium hai 11. Now there are two equations in atomic structure chapter that we know. We know that mass is proton plus neutron and charge is proton minus electron. That is what we know. तो हम यहाँ से देख लेते हैं कि neutrons are 23 minus 11, that's 12, and charge plus 1 है, so that means plus 1 is equal to 11 minus x, so x is going to be 10. So there you go. Sodium reacts with nitrogen to form sodium nitrite. Now in this question, examiner is testing two things. Do you know how to balance and do you know what nitrogen is? So nitrogen exists as N2. Okay, N2 because it's diatomic. So there you go. There are other diatomics as well. You know, there is hydrogen, there is nitrogen, oxygen, and then group 7. Those are the things that are diatomic. So yeah, we'll get started with this. So 3 sodium here and 2 nitrogen here, and now what do I have? I have 6 sodium, so I'll just come back here and make 6 sodium, and there you go, it's balanced. When carbon is heated with steam in a closed container, an equilibrium mixture is formed. Okay, the forward reaction is endothermic. Describe and explain. Again, you have to first describe and then explain. ठीक है, yeah, I love every good student, yeah. There you go. Describe and explain the effect, if any, on the position of equilibrium when the temperature is increased. Alright, so we have to mention what happens here. Now for that, आपको मैंने बताया था equilibrium equation को देखने के ना 3 तरीके हैं. First is of course you look at the reactant and product और आपको वहाँ से पता लग जाता है. Second is looking at it in terms of endothermic or exothermic. This one is endothermic, so it's a minus plus equation. Okay, minus plus equation. और टेम्परेचर बढ़ा रहे हो ना, सो इट विल गो टुवर्ड्स द पॉजिटिव साइड. टेम्परेचर कम कर रहे हो, इट विल कम टुवर्ड्स द नेगेटिव साइड. ठीक है. सिमिलरली द अदर वन, द थर्ड मेथड ऑफ लुकिंग एट इक्विलिब्रियम इक्वेशन इज टू लुक एट द gaseous moles. In this case, we have 1 on the left. Remember, carbon is not gas, so we don't count that. And 2 on the right, so 1, 2. That tells us कि reaction की strength. So जब आप pressure ज़्यादा कर रहे हो वो कम की तरफ जाएगा, कम कर रहे हो ज़्यादा की तरफ जाएगा. Those are the ways you can analyze any equilibrium. So describe and explain the effect, if any, on the position of equilibrium when the temperature is increased. So you're increasing the temperature, it's going to go towards the positive side. Increase is positive. So it's going towards the positive side. So we'll say that equilibrium shifts right or to the right or towards the product or towards carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and hydrogen. जैसा मर्जी आप describe कर दो. Okay? And equilibrium shifts right, and then we will say because it is endothermic, okay, or we can give more detailed reasoning that it absorbs more energy as it goes forward or something like that. Okay, so as long as you clearly mention that there is an endothermic side or there is more absorption of energy, that will give the correct explanation. Okay, you have to give a reason in something like that. Describe and explain the effect, if any, on the position when the pressure is decreased. So again, I've already told you, pressure is decreased, तो वो इस तरफ left side को जाएगा. So we will say that if the pressure is decreased, no, wait a minute, it's decreased, right? So it will go towards the side with greater moles. So we'll say that again, equilibrium moves forward or shifts towards the right as it has greater number of gaseous moles. That gas word is really important. Okay, so the plus minus thing is basically telling me about endothermic and exothermic side. So अभी ये endothermic reaction है ना, that means it is forward it is positive, backwards it is negative. It's exothermic on the left side, forward on the right side. That's why I said minus plus. If it was an exothermic reaction, I would say plus minus, because exothermic reactions are exothermic towards the right, negative, and endothermic towards the left, positive. So that's why we say that. So just saying that greater number of moles is not enough. Greater number of gaseous moles is what we are looking for. Okay. All right. Structure of an organic compound is shown. Okay, so this is an interesting compound because you have an alcohol group as well as the alkene part in this. Deduce the molecular formula of T. So molecular formula of this thing. You just have to count them all. So carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. I have 3 carbon. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. And there you go. That's good enough. State the color change when excess compound T is added to aqueous bromine. Bromine, as you know, is orange, और brown भी आप उसको बोल सकते हो, और red brown भी acceptable है, ठीक है. So then it goes colorless because this is alkene, it has double bond in it, so it goes orange to colorless. Again आप brown भी लिख सकते हो, red brown भी लिख सकते हो, but brown usually हम iodine solution के लिए रखते हैं, तो हम इसको orange बोलेंगे. Compound T can be oxidized to a carboxylic acid. Obviously it has alcohol group, this one, so it can be oxidized. Suggest a suitable oxidizing agent. There's only one oxidizing agent in our syllabus, KMnO4. And you can also mention acidified, but again, as I've told you, it's necessary in A levels but not in O levels or IGCSE to mention acidified. Compound T can be polymerized. इसका method हमने किया हुआ है, ठीक है, RCB method or RCJ method. Remove, copy, join. That's what you have to do. Okay. So look at the structure that you have here. Okay, this is the structure. इसको सबसे पहले तो standard form में लिखता हूँ. Standard form is this one. 4 bonds like that. टेढ़ी मेढ़ी नहीं बनानी. Standard form ये है. उसने टेढ़ी इसलिए बनाई होती है क्योंकि actually में bond angle जब आप इसको देखते हो ना इस मॉलिक्यूल को, तो actual bond angle is 120. तो एग्जामिनर ट्राई करता है कि वो केमिकली बिल्कुल सही बातें करे. But we don't need to worry about that. So हमने standard form इस तरह से लिखना है. Hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. CH2OH उसको लिख दिया हमने. अच्छा, अब इसको हम करेंगे, यहाँ पे इसको मूव कर देते हैं, and we have to remove copy join. So we remove the double bond. We did that because this is what? This is polymerization, additional polymerization, and they've asked for 2 repeat units. So copy it, make another copy of this thing, okay, and then join. So join. Now you have to mention the continuity bonds जिसमें ब्रैकेट्स के अंदर से गुजर रही हैं. अगर आप ब्रैकेट्स नहीं बनाते दैट्स फाइन, अगर आप एन नहीं लिखते दैट्स फाइन, बट यू हैव टू मेंशन दोज बॉन्ड्स. दैट्स इंपॉर्टेंट. ओके, सो वी हैव डन दैट. Compound T reacts with methanoic acid to form an ester. Compound T हमारे पास था. If you notice, it was CH2OH. And what the examiner has done is they have now opened that part, CH2OH. Everything else remains the same. It's important when you look at this structure, which might seem completely alien to you, you still identify that no, this is similar to the one that was before. The only thing missing was this. Okay, so now it's back to becoming what it was in the beginning. Complete the structure of this ester to show all the atoms and all of the bonds. ठीक है, तो पहले मैं मेथनोइक एसिड को देख लेता हूँ. मेथनोइक एसिड मेरे पास है HCOOH, and again remove, copy, join. That's the thing. So what do I remove? I remove H and OH. So मैं यहाँ से H remove कर देता हूँ, यहाँ से OH remove कर देता हूँ. Okay, and then join that portion here. Again remove H and OH, copy कर दिए, join. So I'm now going to join this part. So there you go. थोड़ा सा उसको reverse कर देना because it joins clearly through that. And there you go. Done. That's the ester you're looking for. Why is it an ester? Because of this ester bond here, ester linkage here. Okay, that's why it's an ester. Methanoic acid is a weak acid. Hydrochloric acid is a strong acid. Okay. give the formula of the positive ion that is present in all acids. That's H positive, right? So we'll mention H positive ion. They asked us for formula, so you can't just mention hydrogen ion. You have to mention H and the positive charge. Explain why the rate of reaction of 1 mole per dm cube methanoic acid with magnesium is less than the rate of reaction of 1 mole per dm cube HCl with magnesium. So what's the reason? The reason one is a weak acid and one is a strong acid is because of how many or what's the concentration of H positive that they have. It is the H positive जिसकी वजह से कोई भी acid है और जितने ज़्यादा होंगे उतना ज़्यादा stronger acid होगा. So we will say that the constant, we have to give a reason, right? So just saying it doesn't ionize completely, it ionizes partially, is not going to give me a reason about the reaction. It is true that weak acids ionize partially and strong acids ionize fully, but that does not explain why the rate is slower. So you have to mention reaction होता कहाँ है. Reaction किसकी वजह से होता है? Magnesium comes and displaces hydrogen ion. तो जब hydrogen ion ही कम है, so obviously magnesium is going to displace it slower or lesser. That is the reason. So that is what we'll write. We will not say it ionizes completely or it ionizes partially. उससे क्या पता चल रहा है reaction के बारे में? Talk about the reaction. Your answers should be contextualized. They should be relevant to the question that you're solving. So we'll say that there is less concentration of H positive. So less concentration of H positive ion in methanoic acid. You can mention the formula compared to HCl. There you go. Construct the equation for the reaction of methanoic acid with magnesium. अच्छा, अब इसमें तो उसने methanoic acid दे दिया ना. इससे पहले उन्होंने एक साल क्या किया था? They took completely new acids, acids that the students had not seen in O levels or IGCSE. Organic acids हैं, they behave like weak acids, but we hadn't seen them. तो उन्होंने कहा इसका रिएक्शन करके दिखाओ. तो आपने कैसे रिएक्शन करवाना है? There are two kinds of organic acids. One are the one with COOH. Okay, so that's the more prevalent one. So यहाँ पर we have 8COOH. Okay, अगर ये COOH इस तरह ना होता CH3COOH हो जाता, ठीक है, ये ना होता C2H3COOH हो जाता, आपको और भी तरह का मिल सकता है, ठीक है. और C2H3 तो वैसे डबल बॉन्ड बनेगी उसके अंदर, वो हो सकता है प्रोपीनोइक एसिड होगा वो, बट यूजली वी डू C2H5, राइट, बट C2H3 भी हो सकता है. ओके, दैट इज़ वन काइंड ऑफ एसिड. हाउ डू यू वर्क विद दैट एसिड? यू सिंपली रिमूव द H पॉजिटिव, द वन विद O, वो H पॉजिटिव रिमूव करना है. दैट्स हाउ यू डू इट. सो अब क्या होगा? It will give H positive and whatever is left, it's very important, whatever is left will get a negative charge. आपने नहीं देखना वो क्या चीज़ है, वो जो भी है ना, it will get a negative charge. That's one. Sometimes we also get acids which have NH2 in them. Now this is not in your syllabus, but it can be tested. क्योंकि what is in your syllabus? Knowing that acids give H positive. That's what's important. आपने इस तरह का एसिड शायद देखा नहीं होगा. वो आपको कोई ऐसा एसिड उठा के दे देगा जो कि completely न्यू होगा, जैसे HCONH2. That thing can be an acid in specific conditions. अब वो आपसे कहता है कि ये एसिड है, आप क्या करेंगे? All you gotta do, remove H positive. एक H रिमूव करो यहाँ से, या ऑक्सीजन के साथ से या नाइट्रोजन के साथ से, दो ही तरह के आता है. रिमूव दैट हाइड्रोजन, द वन विद नाइट्रोजन. उसके बाद दो हाइड्रोजन थे ना, एक रिमूव कर दिया. ओके, वट एवर इज लेफ्ट इज नेगेटिव. देयर यू गो. दैट्स हाउ यू सॉल्व क्वेश्चंस फॉर वीक एसिड्स जिनमें टोटली न्यू एसिड्स कम अप. यू सिंपली रिमूव एन H फ्रॉम नेक्स्ट टू ऑक्सीजन और नेक्स्ट टू नाइट्रोजन, and whatever is left that gets a negative charge. Okay, so that's important here. So I'll come back to the question that we were solving. So now you have methanoic acid reacting with magnesium. Okay, so when it does, obviously it's going to release hydrogen gas, and whatever is left after you remove hydrogen is going to get a negative charge, right? So HCOO. What is the charge on magnesium? Positive 2. So the 2 comes here and 1 goes there, cross multiplication, and you get the formula Mg is the positive charge and the other thing is the negative charge. This is called magnesium methanoate. Okay, so yeah, there you go. This question is about sulfuric acid and sulfates. Sulfur is one of the raw materials used in contact process. What are raw materials? Raw materials are the things that you get as they are. You don't manufacture them in the process. If you write magnesium first and methanoate ion later, you don't lose a mark. It's perfectly fine. Just make sure that the cross multiplication is right. So raw materials are the ones that you get as they are, and then you do further process on them. उनको बनाने के लिए आप process नहीं करते हैं. So contact process में what do we have? We have 4 equations. We have sulfur burning with oxygen. That produces sulfur dioxide. That sulfur dioxide reacts with oxygen again. हमने अभी तक ऑक्सीजन बनाई नहीं है, हमने सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड बनाई है. इट प्रोड्यूसेस सल्फर ट्राइऑक्साइड. हमने अब सल्फर ट्राइऑक्साइड भी बना दिया. ऑक्सीजन नहीं बनाई, सल्फर नहीं बनाया, दोनों अभी रॉ मटेरियल है. देन दैट सल्फर ट्राइऑक्साइड इज यूज्ड विद वाटर टू मेक ओलियम. अब हमने वाटर भी नहीं बनाया यहाँ पे. वी जस्ट टुक वाटर, added it to sulfur trioxide. We can trace sulfur trioxide being made in the reaction. We cannot trace water being made. So water is a raw material. If you cannot trace the formation of that thing in the reaction, that is a raw material. So यहाँ पर water, oxygen, sulfur, they are the 3 raw materials, and that's what we'll mention. Name the catalyst used in, अच्छा यहाँ पे some students would write sulfuric acid because in the 4th step we use oleum with sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid. But then again, can't you just trace the formation of sulfuric acid in this? You can, right? Secondly, you can make sulfuric acid by dissolving sulfur trioxide in water. हम क्यों नहीं वो process करते? Because that process is highly exothermic explosive. So we avoid that. But वो कर तो सकते हैं ना यहाँ पे. So that is why sulfuric acid is not raw material. Okay? It is water and oxygen. Now, examiners usually just not mention oxygen. They say air. Somebody, Huzaifa has also mentioned air. If you write oxygen, that's fine. If you mention air, that's also fine. Okay? If you mention dry air, that's also fine. Name the catalyst used. You have to name it, not the formula. So don't write V2O5. You name it. Vanadium 5. 5 because vanadium has a positive 5 charge in this. Not really a charge, it's oxidation state. Vanadium 5 oxide. Wait a minute, this is a charge in this case as well. Electrolysis of dilute sulfuric acid using inert electrodes produces oxygen at the anode. Okay, define the term electrolysis. What's electrolysis? Electrolysis is when you break down or decompose an ionic compound. It has to be an ionic compound, otherwise there won't be any ions, breakdown hoga nahi. Okay, so electrolysis is the process in which you break down or decompose an ionic compound using electricity. So you have to mention electricity, you have to mention ionic compound, you have to mention that it is decomposition or breakdown. Okay, so that's how you define this thing. Rida's answer is electrolysis is the process passing of electricity to split a compound into its constituent. That's very vague. You can't split any substance without ions through electricity. You can't. So that's important. You have to mention that it has to be an ionic compound or an electrolyte. वो भी आप लिख सकते हो electrolyte. But you can't mention just a compound. It can't be any compound. Okay. Yeah. Construct the equation for the reaction taking place at the cathode. What's happening at the cathode? You have electrolysis of sulfuric acid and that's dilute. Dilute है तो water breakdown होना है. Water breakdown होना है तो you're going to get hydrogen gas. So what is in water? AH and OH. Of course you have hydrogen sulfate as well, but sulfate never really breaks down in our syllabus. So hydrogen ions go, take the electrons, make hydrogen gas. Because it's 2H, so I'll write 2 here and then 2 here. Okay, so that's good enough. Dilute sulfuric acid reacts with sodium hydroxide. Okay, a student adds 0.76 grams of sodium hydroxide to 45 cm cube. That is the volume, that is the concentration of sulfuric acid. Okay, show by calculation that sodium hydroxide is in excess. Now this is a question about excess. How do you know, how do we solve questions for excess? First of all, how do you know a reaction is of excess? ये आपने prove करना है. You will get 2 reactants and you will get information of both of them. if you have information of both the reactants there, that shows that this is the reaction which you have to find limiting agent. यहाँ पे we had sodium hydroxide and H2SO4 and we have information of both. So we have to find the limiting agent first, because that defines कि reaction होगा कि नहीं होगा. Okay? And secondly, how do you show something in excess? Show that the thing that you have is more than what you need. Or limiting agent कैसे show करते हैं? The thing that you have, the amount that you have is less than what you need. So over here, what I'm going to do is show that sodium hydroxide that I need is less and the one that I have is more. That's it. So I'll start with sulfuric acid now. I don't really have to, but I can still start. So I'm going to start with sulfuric acid. I've told you how do you solve stoichiometry questions, 3 steps. Moles is the first thing, moles is the second thing, answer. So I'm going to start with moles of sulfuric acid. N equals CV, C is 0.2, V is 45 over 1000. So that's going to be, I'll just 0.009. Okay, I can also write 9 to 10 power minus 3. That's also fine. Okay. Dragon Ball, I'm going to do some magic and I'm going to make sure आप गायब हो जाएंगे. Okay. Okay. So that's the number of moles that we have for this. And now I'm going to find number of moles of the other thing. So I have 1 to 2 as the mole ratio. So 0.009 is the moles of acid. So X is the moles of obviously the sodium hydroxide. Cross multiply, you get 0.018 moles. That is how much sodium hydroxide you need. Okay. Let's find the mass of that. So mass is, number of moles is mass over MR. So mass I'm going to need is 0.018 multiplied by MR of sodium hydroxide. That is 23 for sodium, 1 for hydrogen and 16 for oxygen. That's 40. So 40 multiplied by 0.018, that is 0.72. You can clearly see that 0.72 is less than 0.76. That's the thing that you actually have. So because you have more than you need, it's in excess. There you go. Okay, so we'll mention that. You can, so it is in excess. There you go. We have explained it. Aqueous sodium hydroxide is warmed with ammonium sulfate. Again, sodium hydroxide and ammonium. फौरन आपके ज़हन में आना चाहिए अमोनिया गैस निकलनी है. State the names of the 3 products from this reaction. So एक तो अमोनिया हो गई. Okay. What else do you get? So once you remove ammonia from ammonia, you are left with just hydrogen. Okay. So I am technically reacting sodium hydroxide with ammonium sulfate, and when I do that, because this is 2 ammonium, I'm going to get 2 ammonia, because every ammonium ion is going to give me ammonia. And what do you get if you remove ammonia from ammonium? Just H. So this is H2SO4. What happens when sodium hydroxide reacts with H2SO4? Sodium sulfate and water. And of course, you balance this out. Yeah, balance ho gaya. So we'll name them ammonia, sodium sulfate, and water. You have to name. Do not mention the formulas. Okay? If you mention the formula, you are not going to getting the marks. Okay. We have done the 3 questions, but I will still solve the 4th one. Taki if anybody prefers this one or if there is any doubts in this one, we can still figure them out. This question is about elements in group 5 of the periodic table. The table shows some properties of group 5 elements. Okay. We can see some trends in there. Let's see. So the density is increasing down the group. And what's happening on the other side? First the melting point increased, then it increased, then it decreased. Okay, that's not a clear pattern. Predict the density of antimony. Now, how do you do it? One thing that I would suggest is that if it is in the middle of 2 values that are given, take the average. So in this case, it is in the middle of 5.73 and 9.8. So just take the average. Okay. So just if it is in the middle of a table, take the average. But if it is at the end of a table, बिल्कुल table के bottom पे आ जाए या top पे आ जाए, then what do? You look at the differences, that how is it decreasing or increasing. So then you just mention that. Okay, so 5.73 plus 9.8 divided by 2, that I'm getting 6.26. So you can mention that. Okay, so 6.27 to 6.26 itself, 6.2, all of them is acceptable. But yeah, if there is no trend, then you really don't have any data to stand on or data to substantiate the trend. So I'm just going to mention 6.2. That's fine. There will always be a range of values in such questions. इनफैक्ट आप एक काम ये भी कर सकते हो कि इनके बीच में कोई भी बड़ी वैल्यू उठा लो, मतलब 5.73 का अगली वैल्यू 6 उठा लो, 9.8 की छोटी वैल्यू 9 उठा लो, बट दैट इज़ अ वेरी एक्सट्रीम case. Don't go for that. I would suggest if it is in the middle of two values, take the average. Why it is difficult to predict the melting point? Of course, there is no fixed trend. Okay, 7.7 wouldn't be wrong. It will be in the range, I'm guessing. Okay. Yep. Structure of two compounds of phosphorus R and S are shown. Okay. Explain in terms of structure and bonding. So you have to mention in terms of structure and bonding why compound R has a high melting point and compound S has a low melting point. So structure and bonding दोनों की बात कर लेना, वैसे ही दो नंबर मिल जाएंगे. So what's the structure on the left side? So R has a giant ionic structure with ions, or with strong forces of attraction between ions, or with ionic bonding and strong forces of attraction between ions. Now notice that I'm just getting all that information from the diagram. Between ions which need high energy to be broken. You can paraphrase it, you can mention any of your mention any other words that you have. The key point is that it has strong forces and you need high energy to break them, and obviously I have to mention the structure and bonding. Compound S has molecular structure, molecular structure with covalent bonding. But it's not the bonding that's responsible for melting or boiling point here. It's the intermolecular force. So we'll talk about intermolecular force. So we'll say that covalent bonding with weak intermolecular forces between the molecules. You can also mention that, which need low energy to be broken down. And then obviously you have answered the question. And that's more detail than is actually required. Explain why compound R conducts electricity when molten. Why does anything conduct electricity when molten? Either it has free ions, or it has free electrons. So in this case, you have ions, so we'll say that it has free ions. That's it. Draw a dot and cross diagram for a molecule of S. What is S? pH3. So I'll just take ammonia and replace nitrogen with phosphorus. Okay. So pH3. So I'm going to do P with 3 hydrogens. Okay. Alright. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for phosphorus, and of course it's sharing one with each hydrogen. There you go. pH3 dot and cross ban gaya. An oxide of phosphorus has the formula P4O10. Calculate the percentage by mass of phosphorus. So I have 4 phosphorus divided by 4 phosphorus and 10 oxygen. Okay, and then I multiply with 100%. So I'll just mention 4 times phosphorus is 31 divided by 4 times 31 plus 10 times 16 into 100%, and whatever my answer is, I'll mention that. So 4 times 31 is 126. 126 plus 160, that is 44.1%. You can also mention 44.05 and you will get the mark. And I guess we are done with this paper. Yep. So these are the blank pages that I was talking about. You can use them for rough working, okay? And of course you have periodic table at the end. Tear it out and use it during the paper as you need. Alright. So yep. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm here. Yeah, I guess no questions. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. I will share the time with you in the rapid revision group, and I'll let you know. Don't remove the staple. Just take that last page out and use that prior table. End with staple वापस कर देना. If you take the staple out, you have a bunch of 20 pages, and कौन किधर जा रहा है क्या पता है. Examiner आके कि अपना अपना पेज उसको दे दिया. क्यों हम प्रॉब्लम करें? You're most welcome. It is a pleasure to see so many students coming up. Almost 140 students have seen this. So, yeah, that is a good number. Thank you so much. And yeah, see you tomorrow. Allah Hafiz.